Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue in our lessons and in Tafsir, and we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us. And وَلَا تَنْكِحُوا الْمُشْرِكَاتِ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنْ وَلَا أَمَةٌ مُؤْمِنَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكَةٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ وَلَا تُنْكِحُوا الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنُوا وَلَعَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكُمْ أُولَٰئِكَ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى النَّارِ وَاللَّهُ يَدْعُو إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ وَالْمَغْفِرَةِ. Either he worship idols and he believe in divinity of the idols, or he believe in that God and is many. So this is a person who has associated a partner to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by worshipping other than Allah, or worshipping many gods that he claim, and worshipping any idols, or worshipping animals, or even worshipping human beings. So in the Arabic language, when we say mushrik, what we mean is a person who associate a partner to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in the Islamic terminology, there is a bit of difference within the linguistic meaning. When we say a person who is a mushrik, yes, it is a person who associate a partner to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but at the same time also he is not within the Ahlul Kitab. He is not within the people of the book. So in the Islamic terminology, when we say mushrik, at times what we mean is other than the Ahlul Kitab. Other than the Ahlul Kitab. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, Innal ladhina kafaru min ahlil kitabi wal mushrikin. Those who disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from amongst any people of the book, and the mushrikeen. So there is a difference between Ahlul Kitab and mushrikeen. Both of them associate any partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, the Christians they say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَقَالَتِ النَّصَارَى الْمَسِيحُ ابْنُ اللَّهِ. They say that Nabi Isa alayhi salam, who is the Messiah, Al-Masih, is the son of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is an act of shirk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, the Jews they say, Uzair ibn Allah. وَقَالَتِ الْيَهُودُ عُزَيْرُ ibn Allah. That Uzair is the son of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they have done an act of shirk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But at the same time also the Quran differentiate between the Ahlul Kitab and the Mushrikeen. So the Ahlul Kitab are basically communities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the prophets and messengers to them, and they have a book with them that was revealed to prophets and messengers. But it is just that the books were adulterated, and many of the things that are mentioned are taken out, and in that process they become astray from the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Quran say it is permissible for a Muslim to marry Ahlul Kitab. For example, we have a verse in other parts of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he speaks about Ahlul Kitab, he says, وَطَعَامُهُمْ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ. The food of the Ahlul Kitab is halal for you. وَطَعَامُكُمْ حِلٌّ لَهُمْ. Your food is also halal for them. Then he said, وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. It is permissible for you to marry the muhsanat. Muhsanat we just answered a question I think last week. A person was asking in our Q&A section, are the Christians and the Catholics nowadays are considered to be Ahlul Kitab? They are not considered to be Ahlul Kitab, because the condition of Ahlul Kitab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, Utul Kitaba min qablikum. They must be from the progeny of those who believe in Isa alayhi salam before the coming of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if they can trace any, they are permissible for a Muslim to eat any from the meal any of the Christians, because any they are not any Ahlul Kitab in reality. So you can see the difference any between the Jews and the Christians. Then the Jews any they are careful any about what they eat. They also have any like halal tendencies or difficulties that the person any cannot find any Muslim woman, or in a place where there is no Muslim woman, and he is afraid that he might commit zina and so on and so forth. Then Islam any gives him a way out. So other than the Ahlul Kitab, and that's what we mentioned, Islam is easy. And just say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and it can be done in 10 seconds. But the process of Iman to be established in the hearts of a person, it requires some time. So when we want to marry someone who just converted to Islam, it is not wise to marry automatically. We have to look at the situation of this person. Is he or she serious or not serious in Islam? How do we know? Then we have to look when he converted or she converted to Islam. She has a strong interest to learn about Islam, going to classes, for example, learning about prayers, performing the prayers, and then engage in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you see that Iman has been established in the heart, meaning he or she has inclination to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to obey the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now we say that hatta yu'minna. Now it comes into a state of Iman, and now the Quran is saying then it is permissible for you to marry them. So this is the mistake a lot of people are making, and at the end they regret. So nowadays we heard a lot of stories. For example, I marry a person, he entered into Islam, he recited kalima shahada, and then after that, after we got married, and then he decided to return back to his faith. Then he find Islam and it's not suitable for him, and this and that, then becomes a big problem, and they have children and so on and so forth. So who is the fault? The fault is us, and we have to blame ourselves. The failure to understand these concepts, and to ask at least a person who is learned before engaging into marriage, and is very, very crucial. So that is why it is important for us to understand this very well, because in our society a lot of things are happening in this situation. So the Quran is saying hatta yu'minna. Then Allah mentioned wala amatum mu'minatun khayrum min mushrikatin walau a'jabatkum. A slave woman who is a believer is better than a mushrika, than what you call it, a non-Muslim, or a person who associate partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, walau a'jabatkum. Even if this mushrika or this non-Muslim woman amazes you in terms of the beauty, for example, in terms of her intelligence, in terms of her skills, for example, communication skills, and it can be in terms of beauty. These are the things that people are attracted to. In terms of career, for example, in terms of her lineage, for example, she is from the lineage of doctors, or lineage of family of lawyers, or family of the royal family, even, and so on and so forth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned walau a'jabatkum, even if they amazes you in terms of their financial, in terms of their body and beauty and so on and so forth. La amatun mu'minah, a slave woman is better. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying because of iman, because of having faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is very, very crucial in relationship, and to attain a relationship that is blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise a person will commit zina his whole life, committing zina his whole life, because the marriage is not valid. So this is the first part of this verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that it is not permissible for a Muslim man to marry a non-Muslim woman pertaining to the Ahlul Kitab. Of course, there are conditions as what we mentioned. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned وَلَا تُنْكِحُ الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنُوا, and do not marry off your daughters to the mushrikeen. Do not marry off your woman to the mushrikeen. So now we have a difference between tankihu and tunkihu. If you look in the Arabic language, tankihu you marry, and sometimes a person he is not serious in Islam, he convert for the sake of marriage. You have to be careful. Do not engage in marriage with this kind of people. first, because you do not know their level of sincerity. You do not know. Some people, saying, but inshallah, husnul zan to Allah. No, and this is ihtiyat. This is negligent, and you have to take precaution. Just like, for example, you want to enter a building, and when there is fire, you have to take precaution. You cannot just enter, just wearing any clothes, and you have to take protection. Just like today, we wearing masks, for example. A person goes out from his house, he say, but outside my house, there is nobody. I can walk and do my void deck, I be far away from people and so on. But still, the regulation is wear the mask as a precaution when you take the baths, when you take. So now people are able to understand about taking any precaution. But in terms of deen, in terms of marrying someone to establish Islamic family to attain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how can you not take any precaution? How can you just marry off? With the condition, you put Allah first. You put the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam first. You put Islam first. Not Islam number 2. And your dunya is number 1. You cannot attain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah wants submission from us. This is the meaning of Islam. Islam is about to submit to Allah. So if you do not submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you do not submit to Allah, how can we attain the help from better than a mushrik that possess a lot of things that amazes you. Walau a'jabakum ulaika yad'una ila an-nar, far and far from Allah, and it is feared that people enter into the state of kufr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all this start with marriage. All this start with marriage, because the husband can influence the wife can influence the husband, and likewise the parents have influence May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with tawfiq and hidayah. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Next week, inshallah ta'ala, we will enter into the next verse. Inshallah.